What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you're having a very blessed and wonderful day. Today's video topic will be my review and thoughts on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's first Insider episode that we had last week. So I've taken some time, my hype has gone down, and I'm now able to look at this again with fresh eyes, and I can judge this more from a what's the word I'm looking for? I can judge this more from an unbiased standpoint. I don't know exactly why this video took so long to come out, but I do definitely blame the government for that. It feels like an easy cop out, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick with that excuse. First off, I do want to state that it has been 6 months since we last heard from Rocksteady prior to last Wednesday, and it's actually been a long 6 months as well. We even had people speculating that the game would get pushed back even further, or that this 9-month period between May and January would have been to get done various things, like for example removing or tweaking the gun system or the battle pass or just the live service element in total, which was never going to happen because that's like ripping out your Achilles tendon, which is a vital part of your body that's needed to function. People really don't understand that doing something like that would have resulted in this game being delayed a lot longer than people would have realized. But you also got to remember, a lot of people don't really know anything about game development outside of the takes that they see on Twitter. So let's go ahead and get into the pros and cons of this episode. Now, first up, we have Traversal. So now Traversal had the spotlight this episode, most definitely. We got to see just how these characters will move around their environment, and we also got a better scope of just how massive Metropolis is. It's 2 times bigger than Arkham Knight's Gotham, I believe, and we got to see the baseline of just how these characters operate. So Deadshot can outright fly and hover around and make vantage points for himself, but he can't do it indefinitely, as it seems. It makes me wonder if there's a type of fuel recharge mechanic or overheating mechanic for his jetpack, for example, the jetpacks over in the video game Anthem. I don't know if people remember that, but in that game, while you fly around in the suits, they did eventually overheat, but flying through things like waterfall or flying over a body of water will cool down your jetpack and you can fly for longer. Now, we also didn't get to see the UI in this one, so there's really no way of knowing for sure, but I did go back and check the previous gameplay video that we had for No Matter the Cost, which is the story mission where you have to save Lex Luthor from Flash, because the UI was visible there, just so I could fact check myself. There was no indication of the jetpack thing there as well. He does seem to hover for a bit before his pack runs out, and he free falls for a bit at times, and then he can go right back into his flight. Regardless, he still looks to have, I would say, the second smoothest movement out of the entire roster. Now, Harley, in a sense, is to me a less controlled Spider-Man. She moves around real chaotically, which makes sense for her, but the issue that I had with her is that there were times where the movement looked fluid, and then there were times where the movement was clunky. Now, I don't know if that was because of simply whoever was controlling her at the time, or if that's just a thing with her character in general, but also got to remember, because there were times where it didn't seem clunky, it was just slow. Now, that's making me wonder if there's more to the traversal that we don't know yet. If I'm correct, we're going to be able to upgrade the character's traversal as we progress throughout the game, meaning that there's a whole nother level to the system that we haven't seen yet, which could definitely fix some issues that people like myself have been having with the movement looking either clunky or slow. If you remember, both Avengers and Gotham Knights had the exact same issue, where while we were watching these characters being shown off, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with the player base because it felt like these characters wasn't really doing all that much. But then, as we come to find out later on, that's because we were seeing these characters pretty much in their base forms. We weren't even like seeing them with half or even full of their ability tree really upgraded. So that's a definite example of how we need to get our hands on the game first, or simply just see more of it so we can get answers to those questions. Now, moving over to Boomer was definitely actually, I won't even say definitely, Boomer was fine, but I would put him in the same category as Harley, in the sense of there were times where he looked smooth and times where he definitely looked a bit clunky. However, Boomer, my man, he definitely has the fastest point A to point B traversal due to just how far that teleport can take him in mere seconds. King Shark, funny enough, has the smoothest movement out of everybody, which is crazy because he's pretty much the tank of the team. He's the big man. Granted, he might not necessarily move as fast as the other squaddies, but from what we can see, he definitely looked a lot more fluid. Like when he air dashes, he does a motion with his hands in the air like he's swimming. He's brushstroking. All right, that man is breaststroking. The reason why I know that term is because I used to be on the swim team back in high school. I was like the third best swimmer on the team. No, I'm not talking no more about that. That's a story for another time. But I used to be on the swim team. Now, I feel like that's a neat thing that they added for him in the game, because they could have just simply gave him, leap over tall buildings in a single bound type of movement, but they definitely added, a bit of flair to it with the swimming motion when he jumps. I think that's very nice. Now, moving over to the story, right, which was another pro for me. So coming into the game, we all had a basic understanding of what it was, which is Brainiac had taken over the Justice League and was pretty much just sicking them on Metropolis so that he could do whatever it was that he pleased, and it was the Suicide Squad's mission to go and kill them. Now, we got to find out some other story details through dialogue and context clues and things of that nature due to this insider episode. Like, for example, the biggest one being, well, sorry, not the biggest one, just the biggest one to me personally. We got to see that Waller sent them on this mission and gave them no details about it until they got to Metropolis. Because if you watch the video, they had no idea where they was at. And Deadshot was the one that pointed out they were in the Hall of Justice because he saw it on the news. You would think if Deadshot knew where the Hall of Justice was, he would say, oh yeah, we're in Metropolis. They had no idea where they were at until they got outside. Now, another thing that we got to see, for example, was the Hall of Justice, which is the second biggest thing and probably the biggest thing for a lot of other people in general. The Hall of Justice, which held some very important things like a Wayne Tech exhibit, for example. There's a whole section just showing off Wayne Tech. This to me means that Bruce Wayne is still publicly seen as Batman, but also in the last 5 years, not only did he join the League, but he partnered Wayne Tech with the League in the public eye. So that basically, says the League has been around for quite some time. Me personally, I'm still sticking with the theory that they've been around, that the League was formed sometime during this 5-year time gap. And during that gap, I'd say at max they were around for maybe 2 to 3 years tops, because that will explain why the current lineup is only 5 and was supposed to be 7 members, because they haven't really had the time to get any of the others. Because whenever you think about the League, it's usually either referred to with the Holy Trinity, which is Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, or just the core 7, which is what the League has always been. Now, moving over to other things, another pro, which is the gameplay aspects. We got a somewhat better insight into various different things, like, for example, characters being locked to certain weapon classes. So it was confirmed that, yes, characters are locked to certain weapon classes. In Boomerang, for example, his classes includes snipers, SMGs, and shotguns. Now, he can use 3 out of the 6 weapon classes in game. The other 3 classes would be assault rifles, heavy weapons, and pistols. It was also stated that each character's melee attack can not only break shields, but create what they call juggle kills. Now, if an enemy gets juggled with a melee attack, they will take guaranteed critical hits from all guns. That right there is a big thing in and out of itself, because it means that the players have a surefire way to get critical hits applied, and it's the fact that it's tied to melee, which I assume is to help ensure that outside of adding melee in just because, there can be some kind of extra value to getting in close and choosing that option in a game where shooting is definitely the main priority. I also believe that there's more to the melee system that we haven't seen that will be shown off very soon, because we are going to be finding out more about combat mechanics in the next Insider episode, actually. Also, very quickly, if you're somebody that's been complaining about the melee system in an action shooter game where shooting is the main focus, I'm really going to need you to take a step back and think about what it is you're complaining about. I know who the studio is, I know what they've done, and I know what they've made in the past, but this is not the same as the previous games. That's something that that's something that you have to understand. Be it good or bad, this is not what they've made in the past. Right? There's more to the melee system, clearly, but what I'm saying is people should not expect it to have the same amount of crazy death as the games that came before it. Now, if this was a melee focus game, then yeah, that argument I feel like would definitely have a bit more weight, but it's not the same game, so you can't really hold them to that same standard. That's just my opinion on it. Now, they also confirmed stuff like limb targeting is a thing. You can shoot enemies' legs to disrupt them, and you can shoot enemies' legs to disrupt them, and you can basically set them up for stronger attacks or a finishing kill, or you could set them up for a special ability that each character has, which is called a suicide strike. Now, a suicide strike is a single target takedown that will KO any enemy it hits, and it also has a very long recharge time. There's another mechanic known as the counter shot, which is a variation of the counter system from the past Arkham games. And in Suicide Squad, the way that it works is whenever you perform a counter shot on an enemy, every enemy will have a different reaction to the shot. Some of them will take damage, some of them will get stunned, some of them might run away, some of them might get pissed off and try to aggro the hell out of you, various different things of that nature, right? Also, one more thing. Hold up, I gotta get in the mic. Because I really need you to hear me, because when I saw this, I'm not gonna lie, I had mad PTSD. This is something that I can tell that will end up physically breaking my fucking spirit. We knew way back when that Justice League infused enemies would be a thing. We just never seen them. Here's our first look at one of them, and guess what? It's a Flash infused enemy. You know what I see when I look at this? I see the damn drone masters from Gotham Knights. I see the red and white synthoids from Avengers. I see every enemy that had a knife and stun baton from the past Arkham games. It's gonna be a goddamn challenge trying not to break my controller dealing with these, bro. These enemies are in every game and I hate it so much. But what you know, a video game is good when it can cause you some type of distress or pain. I mean, if you don't believe me, go look at any Soulsborne game, specifically Elden Ring. Now, there's still a lot that we don't know, but we did come out of this insider episode with some solid information on certain mechanics. We came out of this insider episode with solid information on certain mechanics, and the ones that we didn't hear more about will actually be in the next episode, as I explained before, where they're going to be doing a deep dive into more gameplay, combat mechanics, and I assume showing off the character trees due to the wording of taking the fight to the enemy in your own unique style. Now, we're going to get over to the part of the video that I know people have been waiting for, the cons. So the first one here is that online only requirement. So here's my thing, right? I fully understand why people are upset. To me personally, I don't mind it, because you got to think about it. We live in a day and age where the average household has some kind of internet, because it's gone from a point of being a luxury to being a necessity in everyone's day-to-day life. Yes, granted, there are still some people out there who do not have internet in their homes, but the average person has internet in their household. People are ragging on the fact that you have to pay for this game, and if you don't have an online connection, then the game is useless. They're right. Now, there are other paid games that do this as well. So one thing I do want to say, we can't just sit here and act like Suicide Squad is the only one. There are plenty of other popular games that do this, like Call of Duty, Halo, Diablo, and more. Now, if you're not online, then you cannot play this game, and that definitely creates some serious issues in the future, because, for example, if the game shuts down, that is it. You can't play it anymore because it's always online. If those servers go down, you can't ever get back to it. Funny enough, there are actually single player games that do this as well, like, for example, Halo Infinite and StarCraft, and a couple of other games. Now, locking games behind an online connection definitely sucks, because even though the average person has internet, it can be so bad that they might as well not even have it. Like my homie Lejeune here, for example. His internet is bad. His internet gets nuked like every goddamn week. I'm not playing. The man would be streaming, and then boom, internet crap out. The man will be trying to watch some anime. Boom, the internet a crap out on him. This man internet can't never stay up. I feel bad for him. The whole thing is, it's not even his fault either. Usually it's one of two things. People either cannot afford decent to high speed internet, or they simply just live in an area where they actually can't get decent high-speed internet, because there are some areas that don't offer it. Like, for example, when I moved to my new home a few years ago, it was the same thing here. I couldn't get AT&T back. I had to go somewhere else. Now, I got lucky, but I couldn't go back to AT&T. I also don't recommend going back to AT&T either, because they suck. Now, what that means is that since internet is not the same across the board, there's always going to be a certain amount of players who will get the short end of the stick, and it will continue to be an unpopular decision among the gamers. I remember seeing the same conversation around the time of Diablo 4, and people hated it then. They did not want that in the game for the same reason people don't want it in Suicide Squad. If the server shuts down, it's game over. I don't think it's going to be changed anytime soon, but a man can definitely dream that somehow, some way, they will make it so that this game can be played offline if that dreadful day ever comes. Now, next con on the list, which is the biggest one in my opinion, is free DLC. Now, this is something that definitely went over a lot of people's head, and I'm going to explain why. Because I definitely had numerous people coming at me and asking me, how is free DLC a con? So here's the thing, right? Everybody loves free stuff, hands down. Look, I'm a black man, all right? Unless it's dangerous, nasty, or it was cooked without me seeing the process at some point, because I don't eat everybody's food, I normally take free stuff without hesitation. Everybody saw free DLC, and one of two things went off in everyone's head, including mine. It was either a green light or a red light. That green light was in the sense of, we don't got to pay for new content. We don't got to dish out extra money. People are happy that they don't got to dish out extra money for, you know, characters and things of that nature. Now, the red light was in the sense of, this could very well end up being something that could kill the game. So the same thing happened with Avengers. All of the post-launch content was free, and their main source of income was the cosmetics and emotes and things of that nature. Now, a lot of games actually cannot survive for cosmetics alone. That right there is a major task to actually pull off. The issue here is that the cosmetics need to be the primary focus in some aspects, because that's how the money is coming in. That's also the main and only possible source of income next to the initial sales of people having to buy the game itself. But even still, that's only going to carry you so far. That's only going to be able to carry you so far. It works in the sense of a trickle down system. Let's say you have a large player base, right? A decent to large portion of that player base has to continue to buy stuff out of that store on a consistent basis, because more players equals more purchases, which equals more income for the studio, which equals the amount of future content that can be put out to repeat that cycle. However, that cycle will break if the money cannot flow in, and the game will fall into a damn near inescapable pit. Avengers suffered from this issue because outside of the first year, they were barely staying above water, and they were consistently scraping the bottom of the barrel. But what happens when there's nothing left to scrape? There's going to be nothing left of the game. This is why I believe paid DLC would have been the way to go, because if the game does well, or if it does great, more people will be willing to play it, meaning more people will buy future DLC in order to get that new story content, missions, weapons, and more. It works because next to the cosmetic system, they have another source of income that can greatly benefit the future of the game. Now, for example, they could keep all of the story content and weapon and new gear for free. They can keep all that free, but charge us for the new characters, because that helps to fix the income issue to a certain extent. It's another source of revenue. Something else that I want to bring up, which is the reason for why I just gave that example, is that when you go to the FAQ on the website, it has been updated. The section about post-launch content says this exactly. Yes, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League will have post-launch will have regular post-launch seasonal updates earnable at no additional cost throughout playing the game. Updates will include new story content, playable characters, missions, gear, weapons, cosmetic items, in-game events, and more. The key word is earnable. So playing through the game and having done certain things or reaching a certain point will unlock that new character for you to use. It's cool because it means that, like, it's cool because it's a means of getting you to spend more time with the game if you really want to play with that character, but it still falls back to the free issue that I explained before. That's what created the example that I gave of them charging us for characters, but leaving everything else free, because even though it's not a permanent fix, it's still more income that can be used for future content. Now, again, I know free content is always dope, but having seen this story play out before, not just with Avengers, I've seen this story play out before with multiple games, it definitely alters my whole opinion on the decision itself. So this by far is easily the biggest con to me. Other than all that, I don't really have many other cons besides stuff that we didn't see, like other combat mechanics, gear sets, skill sets, things of that nature. Some characters being clunky and slow, but some of that stuff is going to get touched on in the next episode, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm more so curious about what it is we're going to see. We're going to be doing reactions and breakdowns possibly for every Insider episode, so make sure to keep an eye out for those too. And that's going to go ahead and that's going to mark the end of this video. I hope that you all have had a great time here. Let me know down in the comments below, how did you feel about the first Insider episode? What do you want to see in the second Insider episode? And again, if you've enjoyed the content that you are watching here today, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and smack that notifications bell so that you won't ever miss out on any of my future Suicide Squad related content. And I will catch y'all in the moonlight. Peace.